Hello, everybody. My name is Marissa, and I'm here to talk about speech anxiety and the ways that I like to manage it. So, although I haven't done very much public speaking in my life, I have gone through quite a few interviews for jobs and leadership positions that require a lot of practice and a lot of understanding what the questions are asking so that way you can story tell in the best way possible. So, to start off, when I was about 21 years old, I had applied and interviewed for the store manager position at Starbucks. In those interviews, it's a series of questions, 4 to 5 questions, depending on the interviewer. And in those questions, they ask different kinds of ways that you interact with other people. So, with that, it's obviously a very good way to learn how to talk about your experiences and how to get a clear view of what you're trying to say so that way you answer every aspect of the question without leaving anything to the unknown. So, to prepare for these interviews, I typically would write down the questions or have a piece of paper with the questions on them. So that way I could come up with stories with bullet points for each of them. So that way I could just attack it and go when I knew that they were going to ask me the question. In terms of speech anxiety specifically for interviewing, I was a wreck. I was a mess. I had no idea what I wanted to say. I had no idea how the interviewer was going to interact with my stories, nor did I really understand what I was trying to say, especially the first time around. So, the ways that I managed my anxiety began with taking a deep breath, thinking about what I wanted to start with, and just kind of going from there. Other ways that I managed my anxiety, as you can tell, my throat gets very dry throughout my speaking instances. So I try to keep a water bottle nearby or I'll chug a little bit before I start speaking. But otherwise, I really, really try to take as many deep breaths before I start my speech so that way I can keep my heart rate down, I can keep my head level, and as you can tell, my face gets a little bit pink when I start to get a little bit nervous as well too. So I always try to be in a space where it's cooler or I have a fan going or something of the sort so that way I can keep my head a little bit more level. In terms of the fight, flight, or freeze response, typically I go for the freeze response. Obviously, it's involuntary, so I always try to think about what I am in the middle of saying when I tend to freeze. As you can tell right now, I'm a little bit frozen, and when I feel like that, you can tell that I'll glare off, I'll look around, depending on where I'm at in my story. In those instances, I really try to find, especially if I'm in front of an audience or in front of people, I try to find a good person to keep eye contact with to make sure that they are listening and understanding to what I am saying. In terms of other speech anxiety issues that I try to manage, I also tend to get a little bit ahead of myself when I'm speaking. So having something clear in terms of notes either right next to me or just on the side of my head so that way I can go in a direct order that I am looking for. It makes it a lot easier for me to keep my thoughts in order and become a little bit less shaky in the middle of my speeches. So yeah, those are the ways that I manage my anxiety. As you can see throughout the video, this was kind of a little bit more of an anxiety-inducing speech, so I did try to use what I talked about while I was talking about it, but I always try to continue to work on how I present myself during speeches, and I would really like to grow this communication skill specifically because I do want to be in a leadership position where I do have to talk to people pretty often, so I think that this class will help me a lot in that. Thanks for listening. I really appreciate it, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks.